Hello, everyone. It is David Ault, and I want to welcome you to the gathering. I had wanted to start this new year by returning to what I will call my spiritual roots. Probably need to clarify that because it wasn't the spirituality or the religion that I was born in, but is what I like to say found me at the right time in my life. And it was exactly where I needed to be. And it altered the trajectory of my life, so much so that I studied and became a minister in what is called the science of mind. And my purpose for wanting to return to these four fundamentals that are outlaid by the author Ernest Holmes is I also wanted to add my understanding of evolution, meaning that what I may have discerned or gleaned from this information oh so many years ago, many decades ago, um, has also evolved. And again, this is just my development, but it's an insight into the nature of the infinite. So our understanding also grows as we continue to lean in to have beginner's mind, as we talk about, to begin to listen more deeply and to realize that the nature of the thing itself, as Ernest Holmes describes God, never ceases. And so, in a way, this series is also for me to really sort of take note of anything that has become static in my life, stagnant in my life, or the way I like to say it, anytime that I've put a period on things where a comma belongs. And so we started the series with trying to define the thing itself. And the best that I've ever been able to come up with was calling it life force or source or the infinite intelligence. All of the beautiful phrases that make a feeble attempt at trying to define the indefinable, which is God or life, the infallibility of that intelligence that exists in all things. And I say this because I wonder if there's ever a moment in our routine where we stop and we contemplate the thing itself, meaning that we stop and contemplate the infinite nature of life and how that relates to us on a personal level. And by doing so, do we see our nature or our involvement with that infinite intelligence, with the thing itself? Because all things point to us or speak to us or instruct us that we are a part of that. The all. What does the all mean? The all. And so we cannot be extricated or outside of the thing itself. We cannot be separate from all of the virtues and the qualities, the wisdom and the love and the power that exist in all of that. And so this human journey becomes sort of a reclamation, a reclaiming of all of the things that we have mistaken ourselves to be apart from, or undeserved of, or unworthy of, you see. And so, what I love about part 3, which is called What It Does, and how Ernest Holmes describes that, is to remind us to keep it simple, to keep it simple by understanding that really what it does, what the thing itself, what that infinite nature does through us, uh, only involves a surrender of sorts, to not complicate it or create all of these unnecessary steps in order to be worthy of what it does through us, but to realize it does what it does through us the moment that we just keep it simple and allow it and allow it to allow that infinite nature to have its way with us. There's this beautiful phrase that I've loved that says, the deep calls unto the deep. And so when I think about that from a personal standpoint, the deep, the deepness, the infinite nature of the deep of creation, the thing itself, calls unto the deep within you, within me, not on a special occasion, but all the time, incessantly. It's the call to come home. It's the lesson in every powerful story, whether it's the the prodigal son or anything that is a story of redemption. It's Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which is one of the greatest teaching tools. If you've ever missed out on sitting with that and looking at that and reading and contemplating that, it's a beautiful diagram that shows exactly what we go through as humans. The deep calls unto the deep. So there is a call, right? And so off we go if we're paying attention or we're willing. We go on this journey and we're immediately hit with all of these barriers, with all these stumblings, with all of this struggle. And so the journey, the hero's journey is what will you do once you come to those places, that impasse? What will you do? Will you stop there? Will you reside there and become stagnant in your infinite nature? Will you stop listening to the deep, calling unto the deep of you? Or will you and I get up and we continue to go on this cycle, encountering all kinds of things that are processes of shedding and dissolving and letting go? It's the dark night of the soul, which Joseph Campbell also coined. And if we persevere, if we stay the course in listening to the call and continuing to lean into that, regardless of story or wound or embarrassment or attachment or all of the confinement of the mind, the finite nature of the mind, if we keep going, then that model or that graph or that story of the hero's journey is we come full circle back to the full ownership of the deep, and we become the deep, and we have gone on that particular journey. And so the twist in today's message for me is having come to a realization that the hero's journey is not a one and done journey. It's a constant journey. It's a daily journey. Dare I say, if you want to get really granular with it, it's a moment by moment journey. Everything that Joseph Campbell talked about exists within a moment. So, therefore, the call and the dark night of the soul and the questioning of the call and can I do it happens moment by moment. And so therein lies the power of something like meditation. To me, the most pure form of answering the deep or being available to the call of the deep is found through the stillness. Stillness is simple, as Ernest Holmes asked us to remember to keep it simple. And in my love affair with Joseph Campbell, I went and I found a quote that I never had heard of before. And it's found in a companion piece of Joseph Campbell's comprehensive writings. And it says this: the hero's journey always begins with the call. One way or another, a guide must come to say, look, you're in sleepy land. Wake, come on a trip. There is a whole aspect of your consciousness, your being, that's not been touched. So you're at home here? Well, there's not enough of you there. And so it starts. Isn't that great? In fact, I want to read it again. Um, the hero's journey always begins with the call. And so, what the thing itself does, as this part is what it does, what the infinite does, is it calls to the infinite of you. It calls to you constantly. I want you to think about how genius we are. We have become geniuses in suppressing having to listen to the call. We have learned ways to medicate and to run and to avoid and to dull ourselves from that incessant call. And yet the call is still there. And that, my friend, is a lens into the world or the path or the life of suffering, is spending so much energy in avoiding the call rather than just surrendering to it. And what happens is that there is an inevitability in our incarnation. And it might, for some people, not be in this particular incarnation, but there is an inevitability of returning home. So that means there's an inevitability of bottoming out, of becoming fed up, of dissolving into a puddle of tears and disappointment and brokenness. And you start to see that none of those things are wrong. They're inevitabilities. They're the product of the call. Because how can you not return to what you are? The thing itself. Things to contemplate, things that only something like meditation, only things that require you to put your phone down, to turn off the noise, to remove yourself dutifully from all of the opinion, to put the book down and to sit in the silence and to cultivate a way in which you can be available for the deep that is calling to you. That's what it does. And when I say things like, and it may not happen for people, certain people in this lifetime, I say that because I believe that this thing called life perpetuates itself and we keep doing this. And so there have been those incarnations where you did not adhere to the call. And here we are, continuing to do those things over and over again until what? We listen. And not just listen, but allow the deep then to sort of have its way through this instrument that we have been given. And that takes on all different kinds of things. And that expression does not ask us to compare it to anyone else's expression. So with that, let me read this again. The hero's journey always begins with the call. One way or another, a guide must come to say, look, you're in sleepy land. Wake. I want to pause there and say, who are those guides? What are those voices? What is that stimuli that has existed out there that has shaken you? Part of those things are the bottoming out. Part of those things that have shaken you and ask you to wake up is the fed upness that you are experiencing. And so it says, come on a trip. There is a whole aspect of your consciousness, your being, that's not been touched. So you're at home here? Well, there's not enough of you there. And so it starts. And I'm going to venture and say that we are in the perpetual startness of this journey, a starting that just continues and continues and continues. And that particular principle of this rhythmic new beginning over and over, every moment is a new beginning. Every moment is that first step into the infinite, is there for us to understand and become emboldened in, to let go of our need for certainty, because certainty cannot exist in that perpetual infinite nature, because certainty in its own way is stagnant. because our mind cannot comprehend certainty in the nature of the thing itself. And so, what it does, I was thinking about what's an example of what this does that we know and understand and observe all the time. And I keep going back to an infant and the way in which the deep calls unto the deep within the infinite. Infant, 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 infinite, infinite, infant. So to stand. And so the deep, that thing itself is calling to something within the nature of the infant to stand. And the infant, in its innocence, in its purity, does not then become embroiled in self doubt or fear. It just begins to pull itself up and it falls and it crashes and it hits things and it continues to pull itself up and pull itself up. And there is a sort of reveling in that answer and that obedience to the call, so that then the infant becomes the one who is standing. They are now one who stands. And I see that same thing within you and I. The deep is calling you into what it does is it calls you into greater forms of standing, not greater forms of intellectualizing, not greater forms of debating and defending, but greater forms of standing in your evolutionary, infinite unfolding. And that's really, to me, the twist in all of that is realizing that the hero's journey is not a one and done journey. That my lessons of discovery are not one and done, that every moment is an uncovering of that infinite nature. And what it does through me, simply and quietly, has its genesis in my ability to sit in meditation, to begin to understand that my becoming knows no finish line, and neither does yours. And so, if you are new to the writings or the teachings of Ernest Holmes, or if you're a well seasoned person, as many of my followers are, I want to invite you to go back to these 4 preambles in the beginning of the book. Maybe review the other videos that have been done. And as we conclude next time in the 4th step, and see what is new for you. What is the twist for you? What is the new level of becoming in your relationship to these instructions for you? And what is the thing itself doing by means of you? And to realize that everything that is needed is already contained right there. That the deep is calling unto the deep. And why should I fear? Why should you fear? Because the only thing that is fearful is trying to cling to identities and certainty. Let's free fall together into the infinite nature of the divine. Blessings.